Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Author by Flying Alone. Audio novels by Novelist. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 116. A lot of spirit tools. What? Lu Yutong immediately jumped to her feet. Something like that actually happened. Spirit tools could only be created by powerful warriors in spiritual ocean or higher tiers. They would have to use their own energy to cultivate these tools, and after a long period of time, their respective cultivation techniques would be engraved on the tools using a unique method. These tools would then have power about equal to their maker. It may seem like the creation of a spirit tool was a simple process, but there was a limit to the lifespan of a martial artist. To be able to successfully create and perfect a spirit tool would require at least 20 to 30 years. Moreover, spirit tools had very specific, very high requirements regarding the materials that could be used to forge them. As a result, there really were very few spirit tools in existence. Of course, this was the situation in a small place like Rain Country. In Ling Han's last life, what warrior would not have a few spirit tools by their side? Some people who had specifically put their focus on the path of tools would have a few dozen, or even a few hundred tools, and in battle, they would use all these spirit tools, and that was indeed a very awesome display. But in Rain Country, the most likely to appear were the raw materials for spirit tools. How could there appear so many completed spirit tools? And now, a lot of spirit tools actually appeared floating in waters of an underground river. What kind of unbelievable idea was that? Ling Han did not have much interest in this. His target was returning to Heaven Tier. With incredible, unbeatable battle prowess on his side, what spirit tool could he not obtain? Moreover, that black tower standing proudly within his dantian was definitely a spirit tool as well, and most likely, it was of an inestimable grade too. After all, he had been in Heaven Tier in the past, so no matter how weak his actual ability was, he had been uncountable times stronger than Deity Transformation Tier, yet a tremor produced by the Black Tower still obliterated him easily. And now, he need only concentrate on breaking through to Gushing Spring Tier, and then he'd be able to enter the Black Tower and could perhaps discover the secrets hidden behind it. He may even be able to control the Black Tower. Since that was the case, what use was there for him to expend extra effort to work hard for the sake of obtaining other spirit tools? Yi, how can you still be so calm? Li Si-chan looked at Ling Han strangely. When she first heard this news, she had also lost all composure like Lu Yutong, but what about Ling Han? He was acting as if he hadn't heard anything at all. Ling Han smiled calmly, and said, just a couple of spirit tools, what's so rare about that? A couple of spirit tools. Li Si-chan gave a hiss. This guy really liked to talk big. They were talking about spirit tools here, and for minor martial artists like themselves, if they could get their hands on a spirit tool, then even if it would not signify a complete rebirth, their battle prowess could definitely increase by 3 battle stars or even 5. And that wasn't awesome enough. She tilted her head and fixed her eyes on Ling Han. She suspected that the guy was only pretending, but Ling Han continued looking completely serene, causing her to feel disappointed. Why did I not hear of this news? Lu Yutong asked curiously. This was too inconceivable. She was the strongest member of the younger generation of the Lu clan. Logically, if even Li Si-chan knew of this, then it was impossible that her clan would not inform her of this. Li Si-chan deliberately sighed, and cast a pitying gaze at her. Lu Yutong could not help feeling flustered with this sigh from Li Si-chan, and began to doubt her value in the eyes of her own clan. Yet Ling Han only smiled, and said, Yutong, you need not be sad. This girl knows because Wu Songlin wants to do me a favor, and so sent her to inform me. There suddenly appeared a lot of spirit tools floating out through an underground river. This kind of news would definitely be strictly controlled, and only high-ranking individuals would have the privilege to go. He paused, and continued, there may be an ancient historical site at the source of the underground river, and passage of time may have caused a certain change in the site, causing the spirit tools from within to float out with the underground river. The higher ranks most likely are intending to open up this ancient historical site, but there may be unforeseen dangers within this historical site, so of course they would not be taking members of the younger generation like you girls to venture into this likely dangerous site. Li Si-chan stared at him in dumb shock, and after a while, she finally said, "Are you really a 17-year-old young man? You said the exact same thing as my master." Ling Han laughed, and said, "I've actually lived for over 200 years. These words instantly caused these two girls to roll their eyes. Who would believe such a thing? Ling Han gave a sigh. Even when he was telling the truth, it would be completely taken as a joke by others. This caused him to feel very hurt. Since that is the case, why would Headmaster Wu inform us? Lu Yutong very consciously put herself and Ling Han together. A faint displeasure arose in Li Si-chan's heart, and she immediately emphasized, "Master wanted me to inform Ling Han alone." This time, Lu Yutong did not look angry. She only gave a slightly meaningful smile. The displeasure in Li Si-chan's heart increased a bit, and she turned back round and said, "Master said that these spirit tools seem to have their own consciousness, and there is no way for anyone to get their hands on them. After they appeared floating on the underground river, it would be fine if they were not disturbed. But if they were disturbed, they would immediately zoom up into the sky and disappear." Yi. Ling Han suddenly stood up, a solemn expression on his face. There were two kinds of spirit tools. One was the ordinary type, which was a spirit tool created by a martial artist engraving their martial intent on the spirit tool, as if they were putting their own stamp on it. As long as you managed to activate it, then it would be a very powerful weapon. But no matter what, it was still only a weapon, an inanimate object. This kind of spirit tool's power would slowly deteriorate with the passage of time, and the martial intent engraved on it would also slowly disappear before the spirit tool would finally degrade into a normal weapon or tool. This was very normal. A martial artist needed to absorb spiritual chi to replenish their energy, and once a spirit tool left the hands of this powerful warrior and was used by a weaker person, the energy expended would be less than the energy inserted. Thus, naturally the power contained within the spirit tool would slowly be exhausted. But there was another type of spirit tools, the ones produced with certain unique materials. In the process of becoming spirit tools, they would develop their own consciousness, their own spirits. Spirit tools that had their own spirit were able to absorb spiritual chi on their own to replenish their energy, like how a martial artist cultivated. And no matter how much time passed, their power would not diminish in the slightest. To forge this type of spirit tools, it'd require indescribably valuable and priceless materials. Rain country. Perhaps, there may appear some of those extremely rare materials here, but there was absolutely no one with the ability to forge such spirit tools. Even if powerful warriors of spiritual pedestal or spiritual infantry all blasted full power attacks at these materials, there wouldn't even be a scratch on them, so how could they be forged into weapons? Moreover, there was an even higher requirement on the martial artist's cultivation level to be able to cultivate such spirit tools. The minimum requirement was at least deity transformation tier. Thinking this, how could Ling Han not be shocked? There actually appeared so many level 8 or even level 9 spirit tools, simply floating out with an underground river. Damn, even in his last life, there were only 7 powerful warriors of heaven tier. Ling Han was instantly interested, and said, "Where is that underground river?" "Jay, I thought you considered yourself above such worldly matters, but you're still interested, aren't you?" Pretending to be mature, Li Si-chan mumbled. "Stop blabbering, where is it?" Lu Yutong instantly asked in a reprimanding tone, having no fondness for Li Si-chan at all. "Apologies, Master told me to tell Ling Han only," Li Si-chan countered, not showing any weakness. "Ha! I am Ling Han's attendant. Whatever you want to tell my master, you must first tell me," Lu Yutong said a bit proudly. "What?" Li Si-chan was astonished, casting a gaze filled with disbelief at Lu Yutong. Lu Yutong was the princess of the Lu clan. She had so many admirers they could queue up in a line and surround the whole imperial city a few times, and now she had actually become Ling Han's attendant. But when she thought about it, even her master, Wu Songlin, addressed Ling Han as young Master Han, so the princess of the Lu clan did not seem that much of a VIP when compared with him. Moreover, just take a look at this girl's expression, she was obviously showing off. Li Si-chan really felt that she was going to be driven mad by frustration. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 117. No Loyalty. All right. We're all friends here, so stop fighting. Ling Han stepped out as the mediator. He now had a deep interest in that underground river, so of course he would not want these two girls to waste too much time on such pointless matters. Who's friends with her? Both girls said the same words at the same time, and when they realized it, they again exclaimed in unison, "Don't copy what I say." Ha 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 ha. Ling Zixuan instantly broke out into giggles. Hunyuan began to laugh too, though she did not know just what was so funny. She only wanted to join in the fun. Everyone's done eating, right? If everyone's done, then let's go. Ling Han stood up from his seat. No, no, Hunyuan hurriedly exclaimed in a muffled voice. The little girl had a very strong learning ability, and she was learning more and more new words every single day. Ling Han considered it for a moment, then said, "Yu Tong, you stay here to take care of these two girls." Lu Yutong quickly shook her head, and said, "I want to help you." She was in gushing spring tear, so she would be able to help Ling Han. Ling Han felt a little awkward. This trip would not possibly take just one day, so who should he ask to take care of the two girls? Ling Zixuan was still okay, but Hunyuan was practically a man-eating little tiger. No matter whom he asked to take care of her, Ling Han would still worry. But it was very likely that unforeseen and unexpected dangers would emerge within that ancient historical site, so there was no way he could take these two girls along. Then I'll just ask Wu Songlin to take care of them. Ling Han decided after a moment's consideration. Li Si-chan instantly rolled her eyes. Her master was a black-grade high-level alchemist and was also the headmaster of the alchemy department, and now he had actually been degraded to becoming a babysitter. She didn't know if her master wouldn't actually pass out when he heard this. Yet Ling Han found this to be a good idea, because Hunyuan was definitely not a well-behaved child. So, in case she made any trouble, with Wu Songlin's rank, he'd be able to easily smooth things over. Thus, when Hunyuan had eaten her fill, he brought the two little girls along with Li Si-chan over to Wu Songlin's place. This time, Wu Songlin just so happened to be at home, and when he saw Ling Han, he immediately came out to receive him, as if he was the latter's disciple. When Ling Han told him of his intention to have the two little girls stay over with him, the old man of course agreed immediately, and in passing, asked Ling Han about some parts of the major origin spirit replenishing technique. After all, this cultivation technique was completely one of a kind in the current era, so the old man naturally had a lot of parts that he could not fully understand. Ling Han lectured him patiently, and also asked a bit about the underground river before leaving with Li Si-chan. After leaving Wu Songlin's courtyard, the two of them had not traveled too far when they saw a young man approaching them. He looked to be about 24 or 25 years old, quite good-looking, but his whole face had an air of a ruffian about it. He had even left the front lapels of his robes open, as if he was afraid that others could not tell he was a delinquent. Li Si-chan's eyes sharpened, and a displeased expression immediately appeared on her face. From the looks of it, she recognized this fellow, but he was apparently not someone she enjoyed the company of. Si-chan. The young man also saw Li Si-chan, and pleasure immediately bloomed upon his face. He instantly walked quickly towards them, and looked like he was going to grab onto her hand, leering at her in desire. Li Si-chan stepped to one side and dodged his attempt. Her brow wrinkled into a frown and she said, "Wu Zhongyi, be more respectful. Moreover, I've already reminded you many times, you need to address me as aunt." "Damn woman," the young man by the name of Wu Zhongyi mumbled, and a cold smirk appeared on his face as he said, "Do you intend to forget your debts?" Don't forget, if my grandfather had not taken you in as a disciple, you'd have long since had your pants removed and be raped to death. You, Li Si-chan's face paled in an instant. The young man's words were much too vulgar, causing her petite figure to tremble as she almost spat out blood in her fury. Did I speak wrongly? Wu Zhongyi gave a humph. You should have heard rumors about the character of that brat from the He clan. He doesn't only like to torture beautiful girls, he also likes to do it in public. If it was not for my grandfather protecting you, you'd be played with until there was nothing left. And now, you think your wings are fully grown, so you intend to forget your debts. As Ling Han listened to this, he quickly understood the inner workings of this issue. This Wu Zhongyi was the grandson of Wu Songlin, and had a crush on Li Si-chan, but Li Si-chan did not like him at all. Sometimes being too beautiful was not a good thing. From this aspect, Lu Yutong was much more fortunate. As the princess of the Lu clan, who dared to covet her so openly. I will of course repay my debt of gratitude to master, Li Si-chan said through gritted teeth. Fine, you repay the debt then. Wu Zhongyi said with a perverted grin, my parents also feel that we are a very good match. Why don't we just marry tomorrow? My parents would definitely be very pleased. Hey. You obviously look like a pig. What kind of strange thoughts are you having? Ling Han took a step forward and placed himself in front of Li Si-chan. Your name's not good either. Wu Zhongyi, no loyalty. Just from the name itself I can tell you're scum. And who are you? Wu Zhongyi stared blankly. Pa. Ling Han's hand rose and fell quickly, giving him a slap. He slowly withdrew his hand, and said calmly, the thing I dislike the most is people cursing in front of me. Wu Zhongyi only felt very aggrieved. Weren't you the one who called me a pig in the first place? Oh, I was not cursing you just now, just telling the truth. Tell me which part of you do you think does not resemble a pig? Ling Han explained. He was still a very polite, well-mannered person. You're still calling me a pig? Wu Zhongyi instantly jumped up and pointing at Ling Han's nose, exclaimed, how dare you? You not only curse at me, you even dared to hit me. Pa. Ling Han once again gave him a slap, causing Wu Zhongyi to spin around on the same spot for 4 times before directly falling down and sitting on the ground. He waved his hand a bit, and said, I also dislike others pointing at me. Don't you know that this is a very impolite, and a very rude thing to do? So hitting people was something very polite and very well-mannered then. Wu Zhongyi mocked in his heart, but he dared not speak these words out loud. He crawled to his feet and finally stood, pointing at Li Si-chan, and said, you ungrateful bastard. You actually gang up with an outsider to bully me. I'll show you. One day, you will definitely marry me, and let's see if I won't attach you. These words caused Li Si-chan's pretty face to become a few shades paler. Even Ling Han could no longer bear to listen to this vulgarity. He picked up a rock from the ground, and slammed it onto Wu Zhongyi. Wu Zhongyi gave a miserable yell, and fell directly onto the ground, no longer moving. Li Si-chan's expression quickly changed, and she said, you didn't kill him, right? It was true that she did not like this person, but Wu Zhongyi was Wu Songlin's only grandson. If he died, then that would mean that the Wu clan would end in this generation. It's all right, I know my own strength. At most, he'd be bedridden for about 10+ days, and have a few problems with his memory. For example, he may not remember things that happened in these few days, or maybe these few months, Ling Han said, not very certain himself. Li Si-chan rolled her eyes. And this was light for him. But Ling Han had acted because of her, so she was still quite touched. Don't bother with him. There's quite a lot of people passing through here, and soon, he'd be discovered. Ling Han took hold of Li Si-chan's hand and pulled her away. That Wu Zhongyi was indeed a detestable character, so he would naturally not mind having the former lie here and rest for a while longer. Li Si-chan could not resist Ling Han, who was stronger than her, so she could only submit herself to being pulled along by him. You two, when they returned to Ling Han's place, Lu Yutong saw that the two were walking hand in hand, and a spark of killing intent appeared on her beautiful face. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 118. Blood-Gushing Mountain. Ling Han laughed, and released Li Si-chan's hand before saying, "Have you finished packing?" Just now, he and Li Si-chan were in charge of sending the two little girls over, while Lu Yutong was in charge of packing their stuff. "I've finished," Lu Yutong said with a nod. The gaze she directed at Li Si-chan was not very friendly, as she pondered whether or not she should secretly kill off the girl in the wilds. "Then let's go." Ling Han seemed to be filled with anticipation. What actually lay underneath the underground river that high-level spirit tools would flow out from it? They went on their way, left the academy and traveled out of the imperial city, heading towards the blood-gushing mountain that was about 2,000 miles away. The mountain was named thus because every so often, the rivers and streams that surged from the mountain would be dyed red, as if it was blood flowing in the rivers, not water. Because the journey was quite long, all three of them rented horses. Otherwise, they would have to spend quite a few days merely on the journey itself. "I am an orphan, and it was only when I was found out to have remarkable talent in alchemy that I gradually left poverty, but it is not entirely a good thing when a woman is born too beautiful. As I grew older, I became the target of desire of more and more people." On the journey there, Li Si-chan began to reveal her circumstances. "Unlike Miss Lu, who has a powerful clan behind her to protect her, I could only try my best to keep a low profile, and hide. However, I may be able to hide for a moment, but could never hide for my whole life. In the end, I became the target of the seventh young master of the He clan. But thankfully, I encountered my master at that time and he took me in as a disciple, allowing me to escape from a tragic fate." This was indeed a very pitiful story, but Lu Yutong was extremely displeased, for she was used for comparison. "You just see how pitiful the other was. Sigh. Beautiful women suffer unhappy fates, how easy was it to incur the sympathy of men? And her, from birth, she was the princess of the Lu clan, enjoying all the luxuries and wealth granted to her identity. Damn this scheming woman." During the journey, they would travel by day and take rest at night, and with the company of the two girls, Ling Han did not feel too bored. A journey of about 2,000 miles couldn't really be considered too long, and as they managed to travel about 800 miles in a single day, 3 days later, they finally arrived at Blood-Gushing Mountain. The Blood-Gushing Mountain did not occupy too large an area. From east to west, north to south, it only occupied about 100 miles square or so. But the mountain was extraordinarily tall and steep, as if it was an arrow shot towards the clouds, going straight up into the sky. If one raised their head to look, no matter how good their sight was, they wouldn't be able to see the top. The extreme height of the mountain put it in a class of its own. There was a large amount of greenery on this mountain, and the tall trees covering the mountain could even approach 1,000 meters in height, as if they were the titans of the ancient times standing proudly on the mountain. But, strangely enough, there were not many animals here. Ling Han and the others very quickly arrived at the location of the underground river. It was very easy to find, because Blood-Gushing Mountain was not too big. The recent earthquake caused the appearance of an underground river, and it could be easily spotted from afar. The ground cracked, and out appeared an underground river about 100 feet wide. The river water was extremely clear, and when they got close to it, they could feel a piercing cold. They followed the river upstream, and after about an hour, a blockade appeared in front of them. This was a man-made fence created from bamboo. It was only half completed, and there were people all around it being busy. From the looks of it, they were ordinary villagers. However, when Ling Han and the others went closer, immediately a figure shot out to block their advance. "Halt! You are not allowed to advance further," the man shouted. He looked to be in his 40s, and was quite tall and sturdy, as if he was an iron tower. Ling Han scanned over this person, and could already tell the person's cultivation level, 9th layer of gushing spring tier. "Yi, 7th uncle." Lu Yutong quickly stepped out from behind Ling Han and greeted the middle-aged man. Yutong. The middle-aged man looked very surprised. Why have you come here? The secret of the underground river should only be known to the imperial family, the 8 great clans, and a very limited number of extremely powerful elite warriors. We are here under command of Headmaster Wu Songlin, as his fully endorsed representatives, Ling Han said. What? The middle-aged man was even more astonished. There were spirit tools floating out on this underground river, and it was definitely the biggest treasure trove since the establishing of Rain Country. There would definitely be debates between the various parties in the imperial city, yet what did Wu Songlin do? He actually sent a few juniors over as his representatives. This was really taking things too lightly, wasn't it? This is my master's letter. Li Si-chan took out a letter. Wu Songlin of course knew that a mere verbal statement was no guarantee, and so had already prepared his token and a letter written by his hand as proof. The middle-aged man took the latter, but with his status, he did not have the right to open the letter. He only said, "Please come with me." He led the way while Ling Han and the others followed behind. This is my 7th uncle. His name is Lu Biyu Cheng, Lu Yutong introduced. Ling Han nodded. While a cultivation level of the 9th layer of gushing spring tier was not something he would take seriously, in a small place that was Rain Country, it was indeed very impressive. Just think, Dayuan City had under its jurisdiction such a large area, yet only the Dayuan king himself had reached spiritual ocean tier. Thus, the cultivation level of the 9th layer of gushing spring tier could be declared as an elite warrior wherever he was in Rain Country. In truth, as long as one managed to break through to gushing spring tier, they'd be considered desirable pillars of support for any party in Rain Country, able to help carry the weight of the party. When they walked a little further ahead, they saw that there were a few martial artists standing guard on the riverbank, their eyes firmly focused on the river's surface, as if there were treasures lying within. Their attention was fully focused on the river's surface, not daring to have the slightest bit of carelessness. When they walked further ahead, they saw that there was actually a fishing net stretched out in the river, and there were people standing guard at both sides. "It's here! It's here!" Someone gasped in astonishment, causing Ling Han and his group to stop walking, and look towards the river. They saw that a jade bottle was floating downstream. There were multiple damaged spots on the body of the jade bottle, and the intact places sported a few engraved seals. The seals looked very complicated, as if they were depicting the Tao of heaven and earth, ancient and mature. Spirit tool. Ling Han's eyes lit up. He had been a powerful warrior of heaven tier in his last life, and so of course had his own spirit tools. He had even managed to create his own spirit tools, so he was definitely more capable than everyone else here in the evaluation of spirit tools. When he swept his eyes over it, he could tell that this spirit tool was nothing ordinary. It was at least a level 8 one. Such a spirit tool is qualified to develop its own spirit, he thought. The jade bottle quickly floated into the fishing net, and as its advance was stopped by the net, it instantly stopped. But a seal on the jade bottle instantly flashed, and, pooh, a huge hole was torn in the net, and the jade bottle continued to follow the flow of the river, heading further downstream. Everyone watched as it floated further downstream, and they saw that the several martial artists standing guard a bit further downstream all moved, trying to catch hold of the jade bottle. Yet this time, even more seals on the jade bottle shone, and, ziu, it zoomed into the skies, and as if it was a shooting star, it streaked across the sky until it disappeared from sight. A spirit tool, and like that, it was gone. So that's the case. Ling Han nodded, setting up fishing nets and various other blockades at a spot furthest upstream to detain the floating spirit tools, and finally, having no other choice, attempting to actually use manpower to fish out the spirit tools. After all, if they used the fishing net, they would not provoke too big a reaction from the spirit tool, but once they directly used their hands to try to catch hold of it, the spirit tool would automatically react, and immediately disappear. It was indeed a spirit tool that had its own spirit. Until now, no spirit tool has been successfully intercepted. Ling Han asked Lu Biyu Cheng. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 119, Fishing for Spirit Tools. Lu Yu Cheng cast a glance at Ling Han, a spark of displeasure washing over his face. A little junior actually dared to ask him questions. Did he have no respect for his seniors? But for the sake of his niece, he did not immediately fly into a rage. Instead, he simply said with a darkened expression, there were indeed a few that were successfully captured, but they were all the more heavily damaged treasures. The spirits in some of them had already deteriorated, which was why we managed to intercept them. May I take a look? Ling Han asked. Lu Yu Cheng could finally bear it no longer. How precious and priceless were these spiritual treasures? Even if they were horribly damaged, they were still the most valuable of treasures. The seals engraved on them possessed a very high research value because within them was engraved the martial intent of ultimate warriors of the past. Perhaps there would appear several ultimate elites of spiritual infantry with help from the research done on these seals, which would lift the overall level of martial arts in Rain Country to another level. How could a little youngster like yourself be allowed to look at such priceless items? Pei, even he himself did not have the right to. Heng, don't daydream, he rebuked, though his words were not too harsh. For the sake of his niece, he only intended to give this young man a little warning. Seventh uncle. Lu Yutong was a bit anxious, but when she saw no hint of displeasure on Ling Han's face, she felt slightly relieved, and said quickly, what's wrong with just taking a look? It won't break from just looking. Lu Yu Cheng almost spat out blood in his shock. Was this still that extremely talented, extraordinarily clever niece of his? Why did it seem as if there was something wrong with her head that she actually said such strange words? What did "it won't break from just looking" mean? The Emperor also won't break from just taking a look, but was he someone you can simply meet with as you like? This was an issue about having the right to or not. I cannot make a decision on this matter. It's best we meet with the several officials in charge, he said. This was the truth. He was merely in the 9th layer of Gushing Spring tier. In the clan, he could be considered above average in terms of power, but was definitely not one of the core people of the clan. Not to mention, it was not just the Lu clan in this place. Why didn't you say so earlier? What are you acting so proud for if you can't make a decision? Ling Han shook his head. Damn. Lu Yu Cheng almost spat out blood again. This young man really remembered his grudges. He had only rebuked him a bit, and the young man had remembered his reprimand and said such harsh words to repay him. He wanted to fly into rage at that moment, but he recalled that though Ling Han was here with Lu Yutong, the token he was holding onto belonged to Wu Songlin. If he made a move, that would mean not giving face to Wu Songlin. Truth to be told, he definitely did not have this right. If the clan found out about this, he would definitely be ordered to offer a humble apology and kneel in front of Wu Songlin to wait for the latter's judgment. To pay such a price just to vent a moment's anger, Lu Yu Cheng was not so foolish. He gave a humph and said nothing more, only continuing to lead them forwards. Ling Han broke out into a smile. He would of course not lower himself to Lu Yu Cheng's level. He only intended to play around with him a bit. Who asked Lu Yu Cheng to be so blind? The four of them did not say anything else. They simply walked quickly, and very soon, a tent appeared in front of their eyes. Yi. Lu 7, why have you brought some youngsters over here? When a middle-aged man saw them, a strange expression filled with incomprehension appeared on his face. This was an extremely important place. Was it a place you could just casually bring people over to? They have Grandmaster Wu Songlin's token and letter, and are his fully endorsed representatives. Lu Yu Cheng said in irritation. What? The middle-aged man was shocked. That was Wu Songlin, a person only below the Rain Emperor in status, and someone who was on equal standing with the clan heads of the 8 great clans. Anyways, I'm going to bring him to the officers in charge first. When Lu Yu Cheng saw this man's astonished expression, a feeling of satisfaction rose up in his heart. He had also been so flabbergasted just now, and now that there was someone to share his utter shock, he felt inconceivably pleased. He brought Ling Han and the others to the biggest tent in the area. This tent was where all of the representatives from the various parties discussed matters, and currently, there were 3 high-ranking persons here overseeing things. What? They are here to represent Grandmaster Wu. The 3 high-ranking officials were all dumbstruck. This was a place that involved high-level spiritual tools, and Wu Songlin actually sent 3 youngsters over to represent him, not to mention that 2 of them were only in element-gathering tier. This was unbelievable to them. Yes, this is my master's token and a letter by his hand, Li Si-chan said. The 3 high-ranking officers studied these 2 items. This was indeed Wu Songlin's token, and the handwriting on the letter was definitely his as well. Of course, though there was a token and a letter, because this was a very crucial matter, they would still immediately send a message to the Imperial City to confirm things with Wu Songlin. All right. Then you can all stay here first. You can participate in fishing for spirit tools, one of the high-ranking individuals said. Fishing for spirit tools, why did that sound so strange? Because there was a limited number of tents available, Ling Han occupied one of his own, but Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan would have to squeeze into one. Ling Han was here on behalf of Wu Songlin, so he now had the right to know more information. There were altogether 10 different parties here. Aside from the imperial family, there were also the 8 great clans, as well as Huyang Academy. Of course, of the Huyang Academy, only the 2 headmasters had the right to take part in this, while the others did not even know something like this had happened. As for Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, they were excluded from this matter. After all, they were not a local party of Rain Country, but an organization that spread over a considerable number of countries. If this was known to them, then probably in a short time, the various countries surrounding Rain Country would also send their own elites to snatch the spiritual tools. The crux of the matter was, where did the source of this underground river lie, and why were there so many spiritual tools that came floating out on the waters of this underground river? Could it be that it was a trove of spiritual tools? Or perhaps, the abandoned site of an ancient sect? If it was the latter, then aside from spiritual tools, there could also possibly be cultivation techniques, alchemical pills, and divine medicines. Thus, this matter needed the highest level of secrecy. Why did they not go against the river's flow and enter, heading towards the source of the underground river? That's simple. They could not. Once they dived into the underground river, they would soon encounter an invisible wall, which stopped them from continuing to advance. This was discovered by several powerful warriors of spiritual ocean tier. Because the danger level was unknown, it was naturally impossible to allow martial artists of Gushing Spring tier or weaker to take the risk. In Rain Country, Gushing Spring tier was the average standard while Spiritual Ocean tier were the elites. There were really too few martial artists who have managed to break through to Spiritual Pedestal tier. There were only such martial artists within the Imperial family, the 8 great clans and Huyang Academy. As the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion was considered a foreign party, it was not included. There were pitifully few powerful warriors of Spiritual Pedestal tier in the various great parties. They were all in seclusion, trying to break through to Flower Blossom tier in order to surpass the limitations of age, and become the true elite of the elites. Thus, even if there were indeed spiritual tools discovered here, the few warriors of Spiritual Pedestal tier were still not attracted over. Unless there would appear a proof that there were also high-grade cultivation techniques, divine medicines, or something of the sort here. In that case, the powerful warriors of Spiritual Pedestal tier would definitely be unable to still remain calm and nonchalant. Once Ling Han understood the inner workings of the matter, he went with the 2 girls to the river bank. They were now also able to use the fishing net to fish for spiritual tools, but it was not allowed to directly use their hands. One could do it, but one would have to go to the spot furthest downstream first. After all, once these spirit tools sensed the presence of humans, they would automatically activate and fly off. Thus, this could only be attempted as the last resort. The situation here was a bit funny. One after another, elites of Gushing Spring tier and above, as if they were fishermen, stretched out fishing nets, waiting for the spiritual tools to float past and enter into their nets, and trying to haul them in. Another one's here, someone suddenly called out. From upstream, a saber floated on its way downstream. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 120, Huge Doubt. How could such a heavy saber float so easily on the water's surface? This was the mystical nature of spiritual tools. Some would be as heavy as a mountain, yet some would be lighter than a feather. It all depended on the kind of martial intent engraved in the spiritual tool. At first, Ling Han did not pay too much attention to it. But when his gaze swept over the floating saber and he saw the symbol engraved on the saber's hilt, his expression changed instantly, and his entire body began trembling. "What is it?" Lu Yutong and Li Xichan both asked at the same time, and when they saw that the other had said the exact same thing, they both gave a humph. Their eyes followed Ling Han's gaze, but when they discovered there was a picture of a naked girl carved onto the saber's hilt, they both felt embarrassed, and could not hold themselves back from grumbling. Men were all indeed lecherous. Even Ling Han was no exception to this. Ling Han did not answer. He only kept staring at that saber, as if he had seen something incredible on it. In his last life, he had in total taken 4 disciples. 2 of them learned the art of alchemy from him, while the other 2 studied martial arts from him. Of the 2 that studied martial arts from him, one was named Chen Rui Jing, while the other was named Jiang Yue Feng. Chen Rui Jing was a more serious and mature character, while Jiang Yue Feng was an extremely lively character, and a self-proclaimed romantic. Jiang Yue Feng had a very weird habit. He liked to carve the picture of a naked girl on his weapons, and his expertise was in saber techniques. Was this a weapon that had once been used by Jiang Yue Feng? Though Ling Han had never seen this saber before, there definitely were not that many people who would carve a naked girl on their saber. Moreover, they'd have to at least be in deity transformation tier, so the possibility of another person was even lower. Ling Han could practically confirm that the original owner of this saber must be his crazy disciple. Most importantly, Ling Han recognized Jiang Yue Feng's style of drawing, so there could definitely be no mistake. After 10,000 years, he naturally knew that his 4 disciples had long died of old age. Thus, he did not think too much about him even after his rebirth. After all, life and death, and age and illness, were all natural ways of the world. But a weapon that had once been used by his disciple actually floated out on the waters of an underground river, and that was even along with other spiritual tools. This caused innumerable suspicions and doubts to arise within Ling Han's mind. Why? Why was Jiang Yue Feng's weapon here? Ling Han's eyes focused on the saber. This saber was indeed very heavily damaged. There were nicks all over the saber's hilt, and the saber's blade was broken. However, because the materials used to forge the saber were indeed excellent, even after 10,000 years, the blade still remained as bright as water, without any signs of rust at all. Based on what he saw, he could deduce that Jiang Yue Feng must have experienced a huge battle, and even his weapon was broken from it. As for Jiang Yue Feng, a person who loved his weapons as if they were his very life, even if his saber was heavily damaged, he would still retrieve it to be carefully buried. Yet it now actually appeared floating on the waters of this underground river. A foreboding feeling suddenly arose in Ling Han's heart. Could it be that something unexpected had happened to Jiang Yue Feng? But one has to understand, in his last life, not just him, even his 4 disciples who had followed him, the greatest alchemist in history, were all pill bottles, advancing through the ranks with the support of alchemical medicines. As a result, their power had risen extremely quickly. At that time, though Jiang Yue Feng had yet to break through to heaven tier, he had already reached deity transformation tier. If he was given another 100 or 200 years, it was definitely no issue for him to break through to heaven tier. Moreover, he had altogether 4 disciples. If Jiang Yue Feng had encountered a life and death calamity, how could it be possible that the other 3 would just stand by and watch? Could it be that it was a problem that could not be solved even with the combined forces of all 4 of his disciples? What had actually happened? A powerful urge rose suddenly within Ling Han. He wanted to advance to the source of this underground river to see if he could find some clues about what had happened. It's mine. It's mine. All of them acted immediately. After all, this saber was heavily damaged, so it was likely that the spirit within had already deteriorated. It no longer had visible might, and was easily captured by the fishing net. Thus, everyone began fighting over this saber. That was a spiritual tool. Even if it was a damaged one, it had extremely high value for research. If they managed to decipher even only one of the martial intent engravings on it, it would definitely allow them to drastically strengthen themselves. Ling Han's gaze grew cold, and he declared, "This saber is mine." All of them were at first stunned, before breaking out into raucous laughter. Is this real? A little brat in element gathering tier actually dared to fight over the saber with elites of gushing spring tier like themselves. But though they laughed, they immediately came to blows. There were no rules in this place. The spiritual tool would belong to whoever managed to get their hands on it. With a long whistle, Ling Han barged into the midst of the ongoing battle. "How dare you!" Those elites of gushing spring tier raged. A mere martial artist in element gathering tier also dared to fight over the saber with them. The hierarchy of martial arts was extremely strict, just like the hierarchy of alchemists. When a yellow-grade low-level alchemist met with a yellow-grade mid-level alchemist, the former would have to pay his salutations politely, behaving like a junior. Similarly, element-gathering tier martial artists would have to behave like obedient grandsons in front of gushing spring tier martial artists. They didn't even have the right to stand together with the latter, what more to fight with them. "Get lost." One of them stretched out a hand in a palm strike towards Ling Han. Gushing spring tier martial artists could give form to their origin power, which increased the power of their attacks by multiple folds. Thus, even if he had not used his full power in this attack, this blow was still an extremely terrifying thing for someone of Ling Han's current level. Ling Han. Lu Yutong gasped in shock, and quickly leaped forwards, wanting to save Ling Han from this blow. Yet she had just barely moved when Lu Yu Cheng intercepted her and held firm onto her shoulder, stopping her advance by force. 9th layer of gushing spring tier against the 1st layer of gushing spring tier, this would doubtlessly be a one-sided battle. Yet Ling Han only focused on that saber, and with all his might, circulated the Indestructible Heaven Scroll. Using the exiting cloud steps, he was as quick as lightning. Who? That elite of gushing spring tier did not think that Ling Han would have such a terrifying burst of speed, and carelessly did not use his full power, which allowed Ling Han to dodge the attack and break through. The others were all embroiled in a fierce battle with each other, and similarly did not take a little junior of element gathering tier seriously, which allowed Ling Han to take advantage of the gap and advance nearer and nearer to the saber. "How dare you!" These people were at first stunned, before they all became furious, and all shot out palm strikes towards Ling Han. This was incredible. They were all high-layer gushing spring tier elites, and the weakest among them was already in the 7th layer. Now that they had all attacked Ling Han at the same time, the momentum created was like a landslide and tsunami altogether, extremely terrifying in might. Peng! Ling Han was unsurprisingly flung away, but what struck the others speechless was that this guy actually grabbed the saber in passing, and wrapped his arms around it. "No matter. It's just a little junior. Let us first decide who's the victor among us, then decide who this saber belongs to." One of the elites of gushing spring tier declared. "Nonsense. What do you mean by comparing might? How fair is that? Then let me invite an elder of my clan to compare might with you, how about that? First come first served, it belongs to whoever hauls it in." This was agreed by everyone. Why is it now that we have to fight over it and the strongest wins? We are all merely in gushing spring tier. Even if the ownership of the saber is decided by power, it should not be us fighting. Why not we do it this way then? Let us all draw lots, and it will belong to whoever draws a good lot. All of them argued loudly, yet did not see Ling Han's body quiver once, and slowly he had sat upright. All of them had very important backgrounds, thus even though they were engaged in a fierce battle over spiritual tools, none of them dared to make a killing move. And it was exactly because of this that Ling Han managed to have a chance to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. But even so, because of so many simultaneous attacks from these elites, quite a number of his bones were broken, and there was also severe damage done to his internal organs, so he was very heavily injured. Ordinarily, the current him could only be carried off to heal his injuries, and there was no way for him to leave his bed within at least 10+ days. But there was a drop of indestructible true fluid within his body. Successfully cultivating the body a dead tree allowed him to congeal a single drop of indestructible true fluid, and the main purpose of the indestructible true fluid was to heal injuries. No matter how severely injured he was, as long as there was a single breath left in him, he could be healed. This was the true terror of the Indestructible Heaven Scroll. End of the chapter. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao will be read in 5 chapters for every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.